This past weekend, by some force of nature, I wound up having both Saturday and Sunday off. My mom was going to be spending the weekend at my grandparents' anyway, and she wasn't going to have a car with her. So the plan was for me to drive down, and then on Sunday, I'd drive back with my mom. But I worked on Friday, and I work retail, and there was a pretty good chance, since it was Black Friday, that I'd be leaving tired and stressed out. And I didn't really know what the roads would be like, so who knew when I would make it to my grandparents. It might be really late at night. But then again, I didn't really want to work and be stressed out on Friday, and then drive and be stressed out on Saturday, and drive and be stressed out again on Sunday. So I made arrangements with a friend that I would drive most of the way to my grandparents, but then stay with my friends on Friday night and drive the rest of the way, like an hour or so, on Saturday morning. But as it turned out, Friday wasn't that stressful at work. I work at a small neighborhood shop, and it's surrounded by other small neighborhood shops. So we didn't get the kind of foot traffic you would get at like Barnes & Noble or Target or Best Buy. Furthermore, it was kind of a rainy, dreary day, so not really the day for neighborhood shopping, I guess. So it was pretty chill, and I left earlier than anticipated, and I was not at all stressed out. So I thought, there's a pretty good chance I could just make it to my grandparents tonight. About 2 hours into my drive, I decided that was my best course of action because I wasn't very tired, and it was looking like I would get to my grandparents at about 8 o'clock, which isn't too late. So I texted my friend and I let him know, like, thanks for being willing to let me stay with you, but I think I'm just going to make it to my grandparents tonight. I'm fine driving and stuff. And I let my mom know that I was just going to head straight to the grandparents' house. I'm going to take a moment to note that before I left, I'd received texts from both my parents saying that if the roads were too bad, it would be perfectly fine for me to just stay in the city, and my mom could come back with my aunt. But I checked the traffic reports, and it didn't look like the traffic would be too bad, or that the roads were too bad. Like, all of the routes were green for the most part, so I thought I'd be fine. And then when I got about halfway there, I was like, yeah, this trip is not going too shabby at all. My grandparents live down south, and the further south in my state that you drive, the fewer streetlights, I guess. So I was starting to have to take things slower, just so I could make sure that I wasn't like passing turns. And then a couple of times I made mistakes, and my GPS had to reroute me. And then I made a really big mistake. I was supposed to turn right, but I was in the wrong lane. And I can't remember if I was forced to turn left or if I just had to stay straight. But my GPS rerouted me, and it wanted me to turn on some creek road. And when I got there was a sign that said impassable during high waters. And at this point, I should have thought, it's been raining all day, and maybe I shouldn't risk it. But instead, I turned, and then I passed another sign that said impassable during high waters. And I was like, well, actually, I've not seen any, waters, really. And probably as soon as I saw the third sign that said impassable during high waters, I had to slam on my brakes. That's an exaggeration. I'm going to exaggerate a little bit in the story. I had to come to a quick stop because there was a straight up river running over the road. It was a terrible place to have to try and turn around. So I thought for a moment, maybe I can just drive through this. I got out of my car and I looked, but it looked like the water was going pretty fast, streaming across the road there. And I just kept thinking, my mom's going to be so mad at me if I drove down here, even though she said I could opt not to. And I chose to make the entire drive tonight, even though my original plan was to not. And then if I tried to pass an impassable high waters, and as a result, I died. Like, she'd be pretty mad at me. I tried to call her a couple of times to get her advice, but couldn't get a signal. Generally, the places where you most need a signal, you're least likely to get it. And then I did a lot of praying as I pulled a like 4,000 point U-turn and headed back the way I came. When I made it to the road that I turned off of, it wanted me to turn right, it meaning my GPS, but I wanted to turn left to go back to where I made my mistake. So I tried to do that. I got my mom on the phone to explain what was happening and that I'd be later than anticipated. And then I was directed by my GPS onto this other tiny road, and I spent the entire time on this road wondering if it was really a road because it was really overgrown and covered in trash, and at one point ceased to be paved altogether and was instead just kind of like a path formed by people turning that way several times. And then it had me turn back around, and it wanted me to get back onto the impassable during high waters road, and I drove past that, and it was like, get on some random fish lane. And my mom was like, I don't know where you are. I'm gonna look at a map and call you back. So then I turn on to some random fish lane, and I drive for quite a while. And when I finally turn onto a highway again, I received several calls from my mom. I don't know if she was really getting more and more panicked, but I felt that way. And then when I got a hold of her, she was like, all right, where are you now? And I told her I was on some highway, and she was like, good, just stay on that until you're here, basically. And so then I got to my grandparents' house at 9:15, which was quite a bit later than my GPS originally predicted. But I was there, and I made it, and it was fine. The moral of that story is really don't go down strange little river roads that say impassable during high waters when it's been raining all day.